unfortunately, even with those niche picks coming into the mid lane for Nestea just weren't enough. And now question becomes, how do you reset? Omo, you mentioned blue side seems to just have a little bit of the advantage overall, and J-Team are going to be the ones that have it here in Game 3.
Yeah, so J-Team have the blue side advantage. I'm quite curious as to what they're going to get first pick, whether it's going to be Caitlyn again or if it's going to be Sett this time. I feel like AHQ would probably want to try something new, so might be seeing a Caitlyn ban come true. So we'll have to see how it goes before we can kind of tell what the rest of the game plan is going to be. Morgana.
Oh. So they say, all right, you know what, we're going to leave up both of them, and then pretty much say, all right, which one are you going to take, and we'll take the other.
Yeah, exactly. And this kind of incentivizes them to take Sett, I would believe. But we have to see where J-Team's priorities lie. There we go, Sett.
Yeah, Sett.
So you...
priority. Okay, go ahead. Actually, almost.
sorry for cutting you guys off. So you probably wouldn't want the Caitlyn so early for J-Team because they've shown that they want to pair it with an early Morgana. So with the Morgana gone, priority probably drops a little bit for them, and AHQ will get Caitlyn.
Curious to see how this is going to pan out because, yeah, they do get the Sett. HQ definitely does have that power pick on towards themselves, get Wacko propelled on towards this Caitlyn, and we'll see what Ysera decides to pick up, as again we saw usually would be either another aggressive. Okay, it's back, ladies and gentlemen.
You love to see it.
It's a Civ game, it's AHQ, yes they play Renekton top. We don't like it, but they still do at the very least. It's early in the draft, so a fine blind pick at the very least. I'm a little concerned because last game, even though Civ was kind of on a carry, we didn't get to see a whole lot of attention be thrown at him, and he's just kind of there, like Omo mentioned during some of those team fights, they're just kind of poking away. He isn't going to be necessarily able to do that on a Renekton that kind of has to go all in, and there's already a lot of just peel being available in the form of that Sett that kind of makes it really hard for this Renekton to get on top of, say, Wacko that's going to be on this gym.
Yeah, definitely. And right now you see the matchups being swapped. Wacko not being on Jhin this time, but Low V will be getting it. Feels like Jhin is looking like the power pick in this series other than Caitlyn as well. So I'm quite curious to see how Low V performs on it, and what, they're just swapping drafts, I guess.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, but I guess the new contender to open up this series is going to be the Lux. This time around, another could be towards Ysera's portion of things, and a very heavy poke and painful lane.
Good ban.
All right, so yeah, even like Omo just mentioned, usually we counter the Lux Caitlyn bot lane with a lot of heavy dive, and getting rid of the Zac from Hana, even though he didn't pay any attention in the Zac game to the bot side of the map, still, HQ are taking, you know, some precautions here, and we'll see how Hana is actually going to try and equal up to that. And I'm interested, do we get to maybe even see that Pantheon ban toward Nestea, as that would be something that would work pretty fine in this situation as well.
Yeah, so Pantheon is a good option, but if he botches the early game like he did previously, then that's going to be really rough for them as well. I think it's likely going to be a Sett to mid, and that's a really great ban coming through from AHQ. If the Sett goes through mid, you want to ban away AP junglers. Lilia's already gone, so the next best one, and something that Hana's been successful on, is a Karthus. So I think this is a great ban from AHQ. Right now, the power picks on the side of J-Team, I think they should be looking for is maybe something like a Blitzcrank, but Woody hasn't played it, and I don't know what their priorities are going to be beyond that. If you play something like a typical hook champion, they might get pretty bullied in bot lane as well.
Yeah, that's true, and I like this takeaway as well from HQ. Even though we've seen so much success from Nestea's Sett, still having to get a lot of precaution and get that Orianna in a safe position and take that away still away from Nestea, just in case he's still deciding to not play that Sett.
Right,
yeah, it's also a really good pick as a combo with Caitlyn as well. You have really strong team fights, really strong zone controls, and that's a good option because you don't have something to jump onto their backline, but you have the explosive cast to displace them. So it's pretty solid into Orianna and Caitlyn as well, especially when your flash timers are up. You can just Predator in, E-Flash, Cask, and that's pretty much your team fight good to go.
Alright, so now for Taipei J-Team, we get to see it's going to be likely that support pickup, and they decide, alright, if you're going to be, you know, harassing us pretty heavily with this Lux, we'll try and at least push you back with something like the Karma. And now for AHQ, what do they want to try and lock in when it comes to their jungle? You already have that AP in the mid lane, so we might not see that Echo once again. Trying to probably look toward a frontline tank that can also deliver that Orianna ball. Maybe we get to see that Jarvan once more.
Yeah, we might see the Jarvan, we might see even something like Kindred, even though it's doubtful against Gragas. Not quite. Okay.
No.
Okay. We saw this yesterday for SNG as well.
All right, so we're going to get ourselves our first Skarner of the PCS in playoffs. I think we saw it once during summer, I think for like one game. I don't remember it panning out all that well, but my only issue here from AHQ is this is such a telegraphed composition that if Kongya is never able to really do anything on this Skarner, it's going to really feel bad if you're an AHQ fan.
Yeah, he doesn't really have the pressure to do too much in the early game, which is good. Like, based off what we saw from SOFM Skarner yesterday, like early game, it's a little bit hard for the Skarner to find too many avenues. But the good thing is when he goes into the mid to late stages of the game, his job gets really simple. All you have to do is make sure they can't jump on your Caitlyn and Orianna, and they can keep outputting DPS. So you can just save your Stinger to catch someone if they're out of position for sure. But the other option is you could save it to just peel your carries. So there are multiple ways for the Skarner to play this one out, and I think it's not a bad last pick here.
Yeah, definitely not a last bad pick, considering the fact that they do also have the Lux at least to help set for the team as well for that hard CC to make things follow through even more easier. And the fact that it's a Jhin on the opposite side of things makes the Jhin a little bit more vulnerable to that Skarner sting.
Well,
Yeah, but the problem is when the Mantra Shield comes in, he'll probably have to save it for peel.
Yeah, you're gonna want that kind of Karma Shield to try and at least keep the team up and running during a lot of these chaotic team fights that we're going to likely see once more from AHQ. So we'll have to see. We're going to be loading on into Game 3 here quite shortly. Of course, this is a series tied 1-1 between our first and second seeds. AHQ was able to bring things back, and now again, we're kind of going down into the spicy pick territory, getting to see our first Skarner when it comes to playoffs, as well as seeing our first Lux come out from AHQ, and we'll see how well that's going to fare. Usually we don't see the Lux paired up with Caitlyn all that much when it comes to this region. Sometimes they get banned out, but nothing too crazy as we load on in for Game 3 between Taipei J-Team and AHQ.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
And back we go into the action here for AHQ, where we are seeing that Predator being run by Kongya, as we were kind of wondering what the plan was going to be there, similar to Hana. So once Boots online, hopefully get to see some action from both of these junglers, especially Hana. This time around, like, especially when you're going up against a Lux Caitlyn, you need to try and get some pressure onto this ball lane so that Wako doesn't spiral out of control, much to how J-Team won the first game of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I think having Woody still on this Karma will help alleviate that pressure, but Kongya on this Skarner will make things a little bit more difficult and add pressure to the rest of the lanes. Considering the fact that, yeah, Lil V, very vulnerable. Omo mentioned you do have that shield at least to bridge that gap away from an incoming Scorpion. But I imagine later in towards the game, maybe Sarah will build a Shirelius later on. And speaking of items as well, we see Skarner sometimes do amazingly well in the mid portions of the game, but come late game when a lot of the carries can afford cheap items such as a QSS, maybe even a Crucible later on, then Kongya will have minimal options to get his Stinger on board.
Yeah, because it kind of turns into that QSS tax that's going to be paid here by Taipei J-Team, and the more they do, as long as they're able to keep even, the rougher it feels for Kongya when it comes into that later part of the game. I guess for them, it's kind of mainly seeing, like Omo said, can we actually use this Skarner to at least try and protect our main carries, prevent an ST from jumping on in, and already seeing in that bot lane, not too bad of a start here coming out from Ysera and Wako. They are able to hit level 2 early and getting a little bit of damage onto Woody to start things off.
Yeah, a little bit painful too because, yeah, Ysera, Woody do have both shieldings, but poke-wise, CC-wise, definitely the HQ duo bot lane is definitely on board. And it's going to be a little bit difficult, but at least Lil V does have that cleanse when things get a little bit too sticky. And it's also a great mint soft counter, I guess, when Kongya decides to tunnel vision on the Jhin itself. But because of how much CC HQ has, they can just bait that out first, and then whatever CC follows will actually remove Lil V off of the map.
And you saw here, Kongya actually went for a full topside clear. He was spotted out, I believe, on his Raptors for a brief second before he left, so they have an idea that Kongya was toward the top side of the map. Actually picked up his Predator boots already, opting to go for that before going for his blue buff, but now a bit of a contest over the scuttle, realizing that Nesty is able to get that pressure into mid. Uniboy still waiting on for, you know, a couple levels to come into his Q and Dissidence. He won't be able to do a whole lot to help out that Skarner, and that means Scuttle goes on over to Hana.
Yeah, gonna be a little bit difficult as, again, of course, Uniboy has to watch out for his mana pool and help try to clear the wave. Nesty, on the other hand, doesn't have to watch out for that too much and has a lot of wave steer to work with. But now, a lot of trade in the bot side of the map.
Ooh, a nice combo, though, coming out as Wako gets caught out. Lil V forced to have to get down that damage. Wako going down low. In comes Kongya, though. Pop the Predator, and now looking for a possible play. Ysera gonna want that Q back, not even forcing Lil V to flash away.
Yeah, no summoner spells used except for that heal on Woody as on that Karma, but yeah, HQ had to spend the exhaust, had to spend the heal on their side of things, and therefore that is going to be a mini win for Type A J Team spot lane.
So a bit unfortunate there. Kongya probably wanted to at least hopefully get a flash out of the bot lane of Lil V so he could try and make a visit once he hit level 6 in a couple minutes. You do see, though, Hana getting some pressure toward the top side of the map as Ziv kind of forced in underneath his tower. His rest is kind of on the opposite end of this matchup from what we saw back in Game 1 between the Gnar and the Renekton, and so far looking all right, getting that first wave ahead of Ziv and already starting to crash that into the tower.
Yeah, a little bit extended, I suppose, when it comes to the lane for rest. But Kongya definitely wants to relieve pressure at the other portions of the map, perhaps maybe mid, perhaps maybe at bot, considering that Hana is on a very strong early ganking champion such as the Gragas, but no matter what, we haven't really seen Hana create impact even on the Zac even before. So we'll have to see what kind of adjustments that J Team decides to do. Is it the usual tactic of waiting for the Rift Herald to spawn, and that's the time they are going to be comfortable with the 5v5s.
So back into a little bit of this reset here. I guess we're not going to really get to see much action from either side of this game until we start hitting level 6s once again, especially from Kongya. Won't really have an impact on this Skarner until he has his Stinger available. Do start to see him, though, starting to fall a little bit behind when it comes to the CS difference between him and Hana, as he was trying to maybe look for a play on the bot side of the map. It didn't transition to anything, so that's kind of lost a little bit of the tempo that he was looking to achieve, and has fallen a little bit behind between him and Hana. First Dragon is available, and we do see a lot of ward coverage, though, coming out from the side of AHQ, and a big wave about to crash in with Kongya pathing down. We might just see Wako and Ysera look to transition and help secure this for AHQ.
Exactly, having to breathe a sigh of relief, even though Wako and Ysera have lost some of their defensive summoner spells. J-Team is not pressing any further to take advantage of that, as flashes are still online for these two. Q will not land. We saw a little bit of Kongya and Nesty interacting by the riverside, but we'll have to see if Hana makes a move here at the bottom lane.
You see, as Wako kind of realizes now that he has to back off. Flash already burned by Ysera, but now Hana might get caught out himself as the Q not gonna land again. There was at least the flash coming out from Hana, but still felt like it was a little bit off target. As the poor Lux accuracy here with the Qs have been a little bit stray, but at least they're able to get that summoner out from Hana, so you won't be able to have that available for a possible dive here in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, Ysera tried to do the Q predict flash, I suppose, but it was a tad, a pixel away from Hana's flash. But it's okay, as we see Wako and Ysera having to trade summoners once more. As Kongya first dibs on this area, but still have to respect the power and damage upon the
Wako,
NST.
Ysera?
Uh-oh.
Wako is able to get himself over the wall. Ysera, though, unfortunately, is just left out to dry. That's going to be first blood going on over to the Jin. Now Wako joins back in over the wall. In comes that showstopper from Uniboy. Actually, that was going to be Nesty in the mid lane. Civ, though, able to answer back with a kill of his own. Meanwhile, though, Uniboy and, unfortunately, Kongya forced the fight up against Rest. Rest is able to find the kill in the 2v1. Civ now underneath the tower, and a scattered fight by AHQ. A lot of mistakes coming through from this bot lane ends up netting them a loss as J-Team are able to strike for 3 kills and get some pressure here into the mid lane tower.
And that's the unfortunate thing, because Ysera, you're not on the Leona anymore. You're not going to be as tanky anymore. So if you're caught out, all your kit, all your shields, all your CC is not going to do you good, because you're going to get bursted down immediately. And the thing is, very unusual for Wako to re-enter the fight, even though all of J-Team is just ready to collapse. This is so unusual from Wako.
And you saw there, like, Uniboy was kind of in an okay position to try and go for that. Civ at least comes and cleans up at least 1 kill for AHQ, but to say the least, this was a rather ugly fight coming out from HQ, and a lot of their team fights this weekend in particular have just not been pretty. We've seen Wako be out of position multiple times. We've just seen scatterbrain fight left and right where the team isn't really cooperating, and trying to force that without Kongyu's ultimate, it feels rather kind of awful when Hana had his explosive cask available, and it ends up hitting HQ pretty hard here, as now that allows Lil V to find himself 2 kills. And again, we see a Caitlyn that is behind during the lane phase.
And that is definitely not pretty at all for the AHQ bot lane. And the fact that 2 fights had already transpired and the cleanse is still available. Therefore, Kongya still has to bait that out for them to be in a comfortable spot. Unless they do want to tag somebody else, maybe remove Woody. But we've seen how that happened before. If they do invest a lot on the support, sometimes it doesn't pan out too well.
So now Kongya, with his ultimate available, we'll see if he can actually start to make an impact here on the map. Still waiting, though, for his jungle item to be completed. That's going to be explosive cast used as Wako once again gets caught out here, and Lil V picks up an easy kill with that 4th shot, able to land the root, and questions need to be raised here. Nesty able to also get himself back into the haymaker. It's a double kill for Lil V on this Jin. Maybe it's going to trade back, though, as Kongya able to find a double kill of his own. Lil V maybe a little bit too close to the tower, but that once again comes back to this fight starting off where Wako just gets caught out.
Yeah, and the escape path is a little bit awkward because Wako could have gone towards the tower in the lane rather than circling around towards the tri-brush. And that's the reason why J-Team is able to take advantage of that. I mean, even though Lil V was a little bit too excited having to get 2 tower hits onto his face, Kongya at least is able to get a shutdown after that double kill that Lil V has acquired.
Sure, a shutdown for Skarner's nice, but now you take a look at Lil V, who's got 4 kills on this Jin, and early game is going to start hitting pretty hard here from Taipei J-Team. We'll see how AHQ try and respond. First Dragon of the game still has not been taken, so we're not seeing any kind of win condition being formed immediately from either squad when it comes to Dragon stacking, as it is going to be a mountain, so still a possibility that you get that Ocean Soul, but it's come down to just some rather mispositioning coming out from both squads, but more or less poor Wako. Playoffs have just not been his time, it seems, compared to what we saw back in the regular season.
Yeah, it used to be, I mean, we've seen Wako get caught out, but that's around the mid to later stages of the game. This early on a Caitlyn 0-2-0, and especially your counterpart in the mid lane, in the bottom side of the map, Lil V has acquired 4 kills already, and still cleanse, still not burned. That means HQ is definitely not able to pressure enough for that to get dished out, and Lil V is finding these awesome opportunities for him to get ahead over this Caitlyn.
You see their current call going to be used immediately by Lil V, and Ysera able to soak up that damage, but still that lone pressure coming out from this Jin. Lil V out for blood, it seems. Meanwhile, top side of the map, heavy focus from AHQ, but not able to set up for this Rift Herald, as meanwhile, Taipei J-Team was able to secure the first Dragon of the game and have rotated their mid lane and jungle up toward the top side of the map, so they're able to contest this. And AHQ, it doesn't look like they're able to actually trade anything back for that neutral objective.
Yeah, Type A J team still a lot of respect towards HQ, a little bit hesitant, but they are full 100% commit after scaring off Wako with his HP bar after that curtain call. Now, though, HQ definitely not in the position to actually try to fight this out. We'll have to see as Kongye will casually walk back into this river, but it's a little bit too late.
So there you go. First Shelly picked up there by Type A J team. If they wish to, they can use this up toward the top side map, get Lil V a bunch of turret plating himself for this Jhin. The Sarah and Waka are there, but unfortunately won't be able to do a whole lot as that crashes into the tower. Extra 100 gold apiece toward the spot lane of Type A J team. And Kong is still forced to have to show himself toward the top side of the map, allowing mid lane at the very least for Uniboy to get a little bit of pressure in, and we're starting to see his Orianna start to chip away toward this mid lane tower.
Yeah, Kongye forced to shadow Hana a little bit more when it comes to these exchanges, especially that they really have to put their guard up, considering that Wako has been constantly, if not dead, been pushed out of the lane. And if you're pushed out of the lane, then you're not in the opportunity to be able to get your own platings for yourself. And that is the sad loss that we're seeing from Wako's 13-minute game that we were seeing so far.
Meanwhile, we haven't really checked in onto this top lane matchup for a little bit. You know, it's just Rest and Ziv in a side lane. It's PCS Renekton. It's Ziv getting pushed in. Needs some hero plays when it comes to these team fights. It's going to be rather difficult, though. That front line of Type A J team makes it really difficult for Renekton to actually get into Lil V's face, or Woody if he wants to try and assassinate one of these bot laners.
I think it's one of those things where will HQ be able to set up a beautiful combo for an entryway for Ziv as well for a potential teleport flank, because there's just a lot of frontline and peel to have to deal with in the form of this Gragas, in the form of this Gnar, and I think that could be the difficult part in having to reach Lil V. The fact that Lil V now has flashed both of his defense summoner spells up makes it even harder for HQ to see if they have an opening, if you will, to try to shut down. Stormrazor already completed for Lil V. Meanwhile, for Wako, a goal difference though, having to sort of snowball into J Team's favor at the moment.
You do see, Hana was looking for a possible play. Kong is at least just trying to shadow his ball lane, try and do what he can. You do see Woody and Lil V continuing to get that pressure, like you mentioned, Stormrazor complete. Wako, outside of the inconsistency when it comes to his positioning, at least still that lane phase is looking swell. Similar to what we saw during the regular season. Still ahead in CS, but a decent amount of damage coming out. Woody might get caught out, but now actually gets turned around as Wako forced to use himself as that shield. As the flash comes out from Woody, realizing that Kongyu was within distance of that Stinger. Means the bot lane going to be a little bit more susceptible to a gank, but again, we're just not really seeing this Skarner have the impact outside of cleaning up that one team fight we saw earlier on the map.
And again, as the game progresses, J-Team will have a little bit more access to that anti-hard CC, drag you into my team sort of strategy. And going back to what Omo said into the draft, it's Kongye will be one of those that will sort of be relegated into just having to peel for Wako. But so far, even though, yes, he is able to at least keep up with the CS, it's still not looking what we expected on towards this Caitlyn.
And there we are. Another back and forth, it seems. Both of these teams taking their time, as we're not going to even have our second Drake taken for 16.5 minutes. It's only just about to spawn. It's going to be Infernal, so we are looking at toward a Cloud or an Ocean Soul, which both sides of the map wouldn't mind having. We do see, though, Engage Me be coming out here from Hana, ended up popping the Predator. For Predator junglers, we didn't get to see a whole lot of early ganks from both of these players. That kind of drives me nuts, and it's kind of a big concern, I think, for both of these teams. as though one of these teams, their Worlds run, if they wish to try and qualify, ends here today. If either one of these teams qualify for Worlds, I'm very concerned with the pace that they play at, as it's going to be Cloud Soul, actually, speaking of speed. That's an engage coming out from Kongya, actually able to get that quick, easy stinger onto Uniboy. But guess what? Nessie has actually able to find himself a face breaker into the haymaker. Wako gets taken down low, and there you go. Ysera on the wrong side of the fight. In comes Resto with the 3-man Mega Gnar ultimate, and there you are. There you are. It's Taipei J-Team cleaning up the fight. 3 bullets gonna land, 4th one not gonna even connect as it's not even used. Hana though continues with his aggression, and AHQ unable to answer on that team fight as they lose 3 members, actually 4, on top of the second dragon of the game.
The thing about AHQ is that there was no objective to take anymore, and therefore had no reason to start a fight in the Dragon Pit because J-Team already took it. But instead of HQ having to retreat and just farm, unfortunately though, they even got an ST, therefore he's even closer to the targets, therefore an easy haymaker, face breaker for the rest of the team. And this is a beautiful setup. Lots of time for Rest to get his Rage Fire on board and make a magical set to just eliminate the carry right off the bat. Again, Wako didn't have the best of starts, therefore did not get ahead over Lil V, therefore it's going to be an awkward position when they head into the 5v5.
So there you go. With that, Taipei J-Team able to funnel some more gold onto some of their main carries that they're looking for. Lil V now 6-1-0, has Rapid Fire complete as well as another Cloak. Jin sitting around towards 70% crit chance, so no one can really step up to him. Ysera, cool, you got a full combo off. Woody didn't even take a third of his health. And I'm getting a bit concerned once again here for AHQ. This is a team that used to excel on getting early game leads, back what we saw during the summer split, via their jungle and mid. But we're not seeing that combo ever really come through. Uniboy, sure, he's up like 30 CS, but he's not been existent in these team fights when he needs to be. And you put all this pressure onto poor Ziv, who's on this Renekton that can't get onto the backline.
And that's the thing about HQ, because usually if the early game fails, and they can get a little bit more patient and try to slow the game out, but they're getting to the opposite side of things, impatient, and want to keep starting these fights that they're not prepared for. And unfortunately, Wako has in no position to actually keep up with the farm, as J-Team is constantly pressuring every single lane where Wako is at, and therefore stunting the growth of this Caitlyn and just continuing to propel Lil V on this Jin. Oh.
Hana? You okay there? Realizing that maybe Ysera was looking for a full kill. Hana keeps himself back to safety at the very least. Having to use that stopwatch. Maybe want us to save that. But it's all good. Civ, though, actually getting some pressure finally in this side lane, especially when Rest is at about half health. Does not have Flash available, though, for an all-in, so rather difficult to close that distance. So Rest is just going to continue to soak up what he could. But now,
I wonder what happened, because the Flash is actually pretty fresh.
Yeah,
use it somewhere.
I'm not sure if Civ... Well, no. Yeah, no, we actually didn't have Hana come down. At least maybe we didn't see it during a replay, but... Alrighty then. All good. Wako finally getting toward his second item now. Infinity Edge complete. And also has that Zeal, but still a little bit before we start seeing this Caitlyn do some decent damage. And with this, Shelly, second time on the map with Lil V, able to go ahead and pick up this first-tier tower in mid. And now, Taipei J-Team, all first-tier towers taken on the map allows them to get wards into the jungle of AHQ, makes tracking Kongya very easy. And I feel like this game is set up for Taipei J-Team very nicely outside of some big wombo combos that will come out from AHQ.
Exactly, and I mean, if we look back into the summer regular season between these two, it ended up in a 1-1 score. But both of those games, J-Team is able to get a huge amount of lead early. That one game, though, HQ is able to turn things around, and that's possibly what HQ is looking towards at the moment. If they're able to keep slowing down the bleed, if they're able to keep or get Wako online and use Kongya as that delivery system instead, because Ysera on that Lux now, not on his usual Leona. I guess the biggest question is whether or not they are able to allow to get to that position.
Ysera getting bounced around. Poor shot, not going to land. Woody just flashing on over the wall, looking for that snare to land. Resto nearby. Nesty also looking for the flank. Showstopper goes into the back line onto Kongya. And now it gets suppressed into that haymaker, though, and the shielding gets him back to safety. Shockwave used, but it's only onto one member. Here comes Civ, though, able to get that teleport immediately, though. Hana turns back and is able to get the body slam and forces Ziv to have to back off.
Very, very close encounter. At least for AHQ, they are able to make that a 1-for-1 trade. Ysera really lived up until he reached towards that tower because of how the shields get a little bit thicker as the game progresses, and AHQ was forced to keep diving into the board.
We'll take a look back here. Unfortunately, they're not able to finish off the kill on Ysera immediately, but Nesty and the power of this set pick, it's just getting ridiculous. The fact that he can get underneath here without getting taken down immediately kind of shows the issues that AHQ are really having to deal with here, as it looks like that third dragon was taken by Type AJ team on the live feed. AHQ now facing the fact that they have to deal with Cloud Soul on the side of Type AJ team on the next spawn.
And that's going to be a lot to handle with more curtain calls on the side of J-Team to start the fights, and definitely more setups on the set. And yeah, it's looking a little bit awkward for AHQ, considering that J-Team has been sort of trampling on every single fight that they've encountered just because they've managed to get control of the map, having to remove all Tier 1 towers, and AHQ having 0 on their end.
So it comes back to a little bit of a reset here, at the very least, as AHQ get a little bit of time to themselves to at least clear out their jungle, but we'll see whether or not this team can start to come online. You're putting a lot of your eggs into the Wako basket as you're waiting for that late game Caitlyn to finally come online. I'd like to see Type AJ team actually start to look for more aggressive plays, because they have the ability to with this set, as well as this Jhin having a full item over the Caitlyn. And this has been a repeated criticism that we have had of a lot of our top teams. When they have leads, we don't see them close out games.
Yeah, because there's a lot of, I think, especially when playoffs came, there's a lot of hesitation, there's a lot of respect and fear. And I think that's the reason why once the late game comes, in
goes Kongya, in comes that combo onto Uniboy, and they're actually able to take down Lil V. In comes Nesty, though, with that haymaker, able to get a decent chunk of damage, and finally, we get to see that combo come out from AHQ into the Skarner, into the Shockwave from Uniboy, and they're able to take down Lil V. And even though he is 6-1 originally on that Jhin, you take him down, he's not able to do anything during a team fight.
Yeah, we were talking about hesitation. It was on J-Team's end, and Kongya seemed like he didn't really care. He saw the target, he tunnel visioned, and it paid a lot. And for AHQ, they'll definitely be happy about that. I believe Lil V was already growing into a 400, 500 gold bounty on top of his head, so that's a pretty good cash-in that AHQ is going to be welcoming forever.
And you can see kind of that benefit of having a Cloud Soul on the map, having that extra move speed through the jungle for Kongya. Very nice. You saw Nesty try to turn this back with a big face breaker as well as the haymaker. Unfortunately, doesn't end up working, and that's AHQ now 2 kills off that fight and gets them the shutdowns like you mentioned, and gets some gold back into some of these carries' pockets.
And J-Team felt like they were a little bit loose in HQ's jungle, because even though they're way ahead into the game, they got Lil V in such an amazing start. You mentioned 1 item ahead over Wako, but things like that can cost you the game. And as the game progresses, death timers are going to be a little bit more punishing, and therefore HQ has the capability of doing that even more. Thing is, Lil V still has his cleanse. He still has his cleanse intact for so long. But we'll have to see as AHQ. We'll have to fight over the Crucible if Woody is going to stick to Lil V even more.
We see here a little bit of the invade coming out from the side of Type AJ team. Still going to be about 90 seconds until that next dragon spawns. Again, Cloud Soul not the, again, go-to all the time, but the extra move speed they'll be able to get, not too bad for themselves, at least when you're trying to create distance between yourself and the Skarner. Baron, though, is available, so AHQ at any point could try and turn that back. And we go back into this waiting game, it seems, here from both sides. It feels like AHQ, again, they're banking on similar to what we saw from Type A J Team in Game 1. Late game Caitlyn scaling to carry them back into this game, waiting for that 3rd to 4th item. Do start to see, though, QSS tax starting to be paid on the side of Type A J Team. Lil V likely not going to get caught out again by Kong.
Yeah, there's definitely 3 things on the board already, just as you mentioned, QSS, Crucible, and as well as the Cleanse if it's online. And I mean, there's a ton of CC for AHQ to try to burn that down before anything else, and that's still going to be a little bit tricky for Lil V in terms of his survival. And the fact that most of the kills went over to him.
Again, there you go. But now you see with that QSS, Konya cannot just run in and go for the fight. A lot used here on the side of Type A J Team to go for a disengage. Civ gets himself back to safety with the help actually of Nesty, but there comes that haymaker. And they're able to do so much damage, and that is the issue that comes to mind when you look at AHQ's team composition. And if Rest can get onto the back line like this, Waco's just going to get taken on down, able to get himself back to safety, but those chickens will help Rest finish off the kill. And now AHQ again on the back foot, having to run away in their jungle. Rest still on the hunt with this Gnar. Not going to be able to finish off the kill just yet. Maybe looking to line up for that boomerang. But now you see Ysera, Konya stuck on the top side of the map. And you can see the happy faces of Type A J Team's coaching staff.
Yeah, definitely happy. Rast even spamming out the thumbs down because, okay, we can get this Cloud Drake later on. It's fine. Let's just head for the Baron and just propel our victory even more. Take down more of the towers that are still standing. And no steal for you, Sarah, unfortunately, as AHQ at least denies the Cloud Soul with this.
You deny the Cloud Soul, but you start to see the issue, like I mentioned, this composition from AHQ with Skarner. He becomes so binary in his playstyle that he's literally going to try and run at you. But if Lil V has one of the 3 cleanses available to him on his team, he's never going to be able to take down this Jhin again.
Yeah, and the thing was, AHQ was banking on maybe Woody is just far away again, probably not near Lil V, but that wasn't the case. And with their composition, with Type A J Team's composition, they're great in punishing. They're great in just keeping on restarting the fight with this Karma. And as well as Rest having to get Rage on board and just slamming everybody downtown in the mid.
And unfortunately there for Waco, did flash on over the wall. Raptor Camp, though, was waiting kindly for him. And unfortunately now that does mean that Baron goes in favor of Type A J Team. We'll see if they're able to get a decent amount of siege on. As again, it looks like they're opting into the 1-3-1, trying to get pressure in all lanes at once and see whether or not they can crack open the base here of AHQ in the next 2 minutes.
Definitely would like to see whether or not, just as you mentioned, J-Team is able to get off of value with this Baron take. But yeah, I mean, I remember mentioning during the draft about, Shirelius, maybe Ysera would pick it up just so that he can match the shield, the R shield coming from Woody. But no, Woody has another Shirelius of his own as well, having to get a lot more safety on board for Lil V just in case AHQ pulls that goal lever for themselves.
And it feels like, too, we've seen now that AHQ are the ones that want to try and make these plays happen. And if Kongyu wants to try and get into the face of Lil V, Nesty is always going to be able to if he wishes. Rest ends up fanning on the ultimate. Not the end of the world, though. He's able to get himself back to safety, but guess what? Turret's now starting to get taken. Freestanding gold on the map, back into the pockets of Type A J Team. It's now net them a 4,000 Baron buff power play and a 7,000 gold lead here at 31 minutes.
Slight good news for AHQ's composition on the Siege. They have a really decent amount of wave clear with the Lux, with this Caitlyn, and as well as this Orianna to be able to slow things down and possibly not get a lot of value off of that. Still though, half HP already on towards this mid lane inhibitor tower, and they gotta be careful in case JP decides to dive.
You see though, Kongyu ends up popping the Predator, but immediately just kind of has to turn tail. Cleanse is available for the Jhin as well as QSS, so even if they get one form of CC, it's just going to get cleansed away if they try and stack. And with that, inhibitor tower in mid lane has been taken. And even with that amount of wave clear from the side of AHQ, there is always the possibility of that go button being pulled Sure, Hana, that's going to be a nice shockwave onto Lil V, but it only takes him down to half health. Explosive gas used there pretty liberally by Hana, but still going to be able to back off. AHQ are able to prevent their top lane inhibitor tower from falling, but again, that was a massive surgical just injected into Taipei J Team's composition.
Exactly, and I mean, going back to that siege as well, Uniboy tried his best to possibly bait out a flash or any sort of summoner spell out of Lil V, but unfortunately it was only Woody's heal that came off of that, and all these defensive spells will be primed and ready for possibly the next dragon to spawn once J-Team is still after that Cloud Drake, just for additional boost and stats. But now Mercurial Scepter already completed for Lil V here, and it's a little bit problematic, I suppose, as Kong is still not able to find primary target for him.
Yeah, Scimitar online here for Lil V.
Scimitar, Scepter is different.
Well, say, Merc Scepter, interesting. Oh no, okay. This is what you can do here, is there we go. There's your suppression, and there is Woody down. A full pick coming out from Kongya. So there you go, man advantage for AHQ. We'll see whether or not they can take it once more. Lil V still not afraid to step forward. In comes Hana, able to get that knockup. Wako gets himself back to safety. They jump immediately in onto Rest. Uniboy able to land the single man shockwave onto Nesty. But even a man down, Taipei J Team are the ones that want to take the fight. Kongya gets down low by that fourth shot of the curtain call. Lil V though still fine. Rest again popping his ultimate freely there. Not sure what he wanted to do, just maybe frustration, not able to get close enough into the team fight. You see that damage from Lil V's fourth shot on the Jhin. And for AHQ, even though they got the pick onto Woody, they're not able to fully convert this into a fully won team fight. You do see, though, AHQ are the ones that want to go ahead and try and start up this second dragon for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, because of that air terrain, Woody is going to be able to join the fight as soon as he can.
See though, Rest on a nice flank, has that Meganar, but again ends up missing the ultimate. Wako able to kite back here. Meanwhile, Ziv takes down Hana. No jungle available for the side of Taipei J Team, and that is one of your big disengage ultimates being taken out off the fight for the next 40 seconds. Kongya wants to jump on in, has that stinger available off cooldown. Lil V though able to stun him back up, ends up hawking, getting Nessie into the fight. Maker is available, ends up getting the damage. Lil V though flashing on forward, able to find himself the shot. Uniboy gets himself again a shockwave onto Lil V, but Lil V is untouched during this fight. It's going to be a double kill for this Jhin, and now they're hunting for Ziv. A triple for Lil V. Curtain call going to be popped, not able to spot out Ysera as he gets himself back to base. But in the end, Taipei J Team, even when they are a member down, AHQ cannot take any of these fights.
Insanely scattered. HQ looked insanely lost. And yes, they were able to get a kill off of Woody, and they were able to get a kill off of Hana as well in the backline, but completely ignoring Lil V. Imagine he had so much faith to work with, and unfortunately, that's the reason why they lost the fight. It all started here. Ziv in the backside of this pit is able to get a pick off of Hana, but look at this again. Lil V is able to position himself well, therefore HQ had no other choice but to engage on towards Nesty, and Lil V just had to casually walk by as HQ just funneled on one hitting target at them by then.
You see there on your live feed, even though it looked close, the side of Taipei J Team are able to net themselves a Baron after this play, and it comes back down to, I think, the fact is it's a Skarner. He's only able to get one target. If you're not able to take down Lil V, which you will never be able to, you net in what? Nesty, sure, you brought a set closer to your team. He's just happier where he is at that point. And now, once again, we saw what happened when Taipei J Team were able to secure the previous Baron. They were able to take down 4 towers overall. With this should allow them to crack open the base. And for AHQ, I think trying to wait for Wako to get to that late game, it's just not going to happen anymore, as Taipei J Team can look to close out Game 3.
Yeah, looking very dire for AHQ at the moment. J-Team hoping to make this a 2-1 on the series, making them closer and closer towards eliminating HQ and pushing them forward in towards this bracket, setting them closer towards that, slot towards Worlds. But J-Team, yes, they're looking towards closing this game at the moment. HQ, unfortunately, has to watch their base fall down once more. And again, no answer to Lil V, just because their options are very limited. We'll see what they decide to do.
Kanya able to spot out the quick pick on Hana, but guess what? They're not able to follow up at this point. Civ is forced back as you had Rest that was able to transform into his Mega Gnar and had that ultimate available. And now there you go. Lil V, he has a pocket Karma on him 24/7. What are you going to be able to do, AHQ? Base is starting to get taken. Inhibitor falls. Meanwhile, top lane, Civ got to be caught out on this Renekton. Some decent damage coming out here from Rest as he continues on forward. And the Gnar is able to net himself a kill. Now a 5v4 for the next minute as AHQ struggling within their base. Taipei J-Team looking to take the game to now match point ahead of game 4 and are only 1 game away from knocking out AHQ out of playoffs and out of that Worlds run as they continue sieging forward through the lower bracket.
What a confident game coming from Taipei J-Team, even at constant times being 1 man down, still believing that Lil V is able to get into the fight and turn things around against AHQ.
And with that, it's once again kind of that question of, you know, Omo, blue side seems to be the key here when it comes to who's able to take home the victory. I felt like for AHQ, I mentioned it a couple times, once he paid the QSS tax, Kongyu doesn't really have any good options solved.
Yeah, exactly. It gets very problematic for him, especially because of the movement speed buff coming in from the Karma, and it's very hard for this gunner to be able to do anything once he doesn't have flash. And once the QSS is up on Lil V, he could pretty much only go for the support or the top laner. Not really targets that you want when Lil V is killing your whole team.
Yeah, it looked very dire, considering that even though Karma already has his her innate movement speed, already topped it all off with the Shurelias just for additional safety, and it makes things so much harder for HQ to eliminate Lil V at that point.
Yeah,
there was so many interesting things in that game coming out from all the players. Itemization wise, that's one thing as well. We saw Runan's Hurricane being picked up by Rest as well to just stack his rage bar faster. He was outing off cooldown because it just doesn't matter with Cloud Soul. Your out comes up every single time you have Mega Gnar, and it was an interesting game. It was a fun game, but ultimately I think the whole series really just comes down to Lil V just looks really good. He won both sides of the Caitlyn Jhin matchup really convincingly, going to double-digit kills as well. And adding on to the fact Nesty on a champion that he's actually effective with, and J-Team just looked much better than AHQ.
Now we kind of get, you know, I've already been gone word that, you know, game 4, it is going to be AHQ on blue side. So they'll have that first pick. They can get that priority. But if the trend continues, game 5, J-Team get that blue side. The question becomes for AHQ, what does this team have to do? Because obviously, it just feels like once they give up one of those power picks, they just don't know how to deal with it. And they've now tried to approach it with different angles. They've tried the Skarner out. You know, they've tried some different overall plans with Uniboy. It's just not worked out. And what does this team have to do to actually, you know, take that extra game off Taipei J-Team?
It's not gonna be easy. They tried to pull a fast one and draft this game as well, with the gambit of leaving up both Caitlyn and Sett. But the problem is, now that they lost this, I feel like J-Team is going to be gaining confidence and being more confident in trading these two picks. Maybe not having to ban the Caitlyn themselves on red side, knowing that they can win with Jhin into it. So it kind of just causes more problems for AHQ, and I don't really know what they can do, barring just taking the win on blue side and praying for something to happen on red side. I can't give you an answer here. That's the problem.
I agree with you 100% because, I mean, both of these teams looked a little bit shaky at the beginning of the series, having a lot of messy and scattered fights and decisions, but J-Team looked really solid in Nesty's MVP.
Livy's getting robbed here on the MVP. What is this?
They can't give him all the MVPs, you know?
Well, he deserves it again. That's for me
true.
kind of the biggest thing is there is actually like an 80 carry diff right now between these two teams, and to say that about Wako in particular is weird. Wako has been the highlight of AHQ when it comes to consistency during the regular season, but now in playoffs, especially this game too, he was out of position multiple times during that early game, and that's what let Lil V get 6 kills before the 20-minute mark.
Just no affiliates. That's
No
the
Aphelios.
problem right now. They don't have
That's-
Aphelios. Yeah.
There you go. There's not 200 years available in the meta.
Exactly.
Maybe that's the play. So the question here now for AHQ, we've mentioned before, what do you do without that Aphelios? What do you do when you are on red side? If you are able to take home the victory here in game 4 on blue, you still got to take one more. Meanwhile, though, Taipei J-Team, one game away from locking in their ticket into the lower bracket final and eliminating AHQ Esports Club. It's still anybody's series, but right now, J-Team look to be the heavy favorite. We're going to go ahead and take a short break when we come back. Game 4.
CTBC Bank is Taiwan's top financial institution, but we're not stopping there. We're crafting an international brand and already have over 260 outlets in 14 countries. We are by your side, ready to embrace the future.